Even though Real Madrid conceded 2 cheap goals in the second leg, Pep's tactics had significant influence on the events leading to those goals. In the first leg, Real Madrid were able to exploit a vulnerability in Manchester City's press. So in the second leg, Pep really wanted to disrupt Zidane's game plan before it was too late. Why Zidane lost both legs against Pep? Pep became the first manager to defeat Zidane in the Champions League knockout stages. In both legs, Pep set out to target Real Madrid's core tactics, which is pretty much the only thing Zidane kept unchanged from the first leg. I'll cover all that in detail after we have a decent understanding of what Zidane wanted his team to do in this tie. In the first leg, both teams lined up as 4-3-3 on paper. Isco was allowed to roam freely, while Carvajal was tasked to attack down the right flank when possible. Meanwhile, Vinicius Jr. was told to stay on the left side. On top of that, Zidane wanted Modric and Valverde to be a bit advanced, with Casemiro operating as a pivot. This was done to exploit a vulnerability in Manchester City's press. Let's briefly go over how City press, since we will go over it in detail when talking about second leg a bit later in the video. Pep wants his team to press as 4-4-2. A midfielder accompanies the false 9 to make the front 2, while the wide forwards slot back to cover the half spaces and the flanks. This allows the 2 remaining midfielders to focus solely on the middle. And so, with Real Madrid's fullbacks staying wide, City's wide forwards were occupied, whereas Modric and Valverde kept City's 2 midfielders busy. This made it possible for Isco or Valverde to exploit the gap between the City's wide forward and midfielder, provided Real Madrid were able to move the ball quick enough. With Isco and 3 Real Madrid midfielders focusing on the midfield, Real Madrid were able to overload Manchester City in midfield, allowing the Spanish champions to bypass City's initial press on a regular basis. When defending, Zidane set his team up similar to Pep's, with Real Madrid pressing as 4-4-2. Except there was one key difference between their defensive tactics. Zidane wanted his team to disrupt City's build-up play as much as possible. So, he tasked Benzema to restrict City on one side as soon as City went into the wider areas, and were adamant on pressing City all over the field in order to disrupt their build-up play. In fact, it was Real Madrid's press that earned them their only goal of the first leg, as City was struggling to play through Real Madrid's high press. Real Madrid were in control for the majority of the match, and the goal only made it more apparent. However, in the 72nd minute, Pep brought on Sterling for Bernardo Silva. That immediately started causing Madrid trouble, as Sterling was determined to get in behind Madrid. And 5 minutes after that substitution, Sterling's run creates an opportunity for City, which they used to get back into the game. A few minutes later, Sterling takes on Carvajal inside the box, but gets fouled, leading to City being awarded a penalty. De Bruyne made sure to take full advantage of this opportunity to score City's second away goal of the tie, putting City in a firm position for the second leg. About 2 minutes later, Real Madrid were dealt another blow as their captain got sent off, and as a result would be suspended for the second leg. A quick note before we get into the second leg. Even though Real Madrid conceded 2 cheap goals in the second leg, Pep's tactics had significant influence on the events leading to those goals. Basically, Pep's tactics put Real Madrid in a position where they were forced to play in a risky manner, if they wanted to achieve what Zidane had in mind. Pep made that possible by learning his lesson from the first leg and then tweaking his tactics to adapt to Zidane's tactics. In the first leg, Real Madrid were able to exploit a vulnerability in Manchester City's press. So in the second leg, Pep really wanted to disrupt Zidane's game plan before it was too late. Essentially, he didn't want Real Madrid getting into a position where they could exploit the vulnerability in City's press. To do that, Manchester City lined up as 4-3-3 when defending, as opposed to the 4-4-2 they used in the first leg. This was done because of Zidane playing Casemiro as the pivot in their previous meeting. So, his false 9 for this match, Foden, was tasked to take Real Madrid's pivot out of the game, as Foden covered Casemiro no matter where the ball was on the pitch. Pep then tasked his far forward to stay inside and pressed the near centre-back as soon as Real Madrid tried to rotate to other side. Pep's goal was to restrict Real Madrid from moving the ball quick enough, because that created a window of opportunity for Los Blancos to find and exploit a vulnerability in City's press. That was the motivation behind his decision to play as 4-3-3 when defending. And it worked wonders for City, as Real Madrid were now having an extremely difficult time playing through City's press. Notice how Jesus can quickly close down Varane if Madrid try to rotate to other side. All this disrupted Real Madrid's build-up too much for Zidane's liking. Even then, he was determined to play through City's press, which was a mistake, as we all know now. But a brave decision nonetheless. City did well to close down any option Varane might have to get away from pressure, leading to Jesus dispossessing Varane in the worst area imaginable for a defender. When City got on the ball, Pep wanted to target Zidane's core tactics when defending. He did it by playing Rodri as the pivot while tasking De Bruyne and Gundogan to stay in their half spaces. With Foden playing as false 9, City were playing a diamond in the middle. Pep did this to target Madrid's midfield. With Foden staying in the middle behind Madrid's midfield line, the false 9 was able to keep Madrid's midfield narrow as they tried to leave as little gaps between them as possible. With De Bruyne and Gundogan staying in their half spaces, Madrid's midfielders were put in a difficult position. They could either focus on the players in the half spaces but leave huge gaps for City to exploit in midfield, or focus on reducing the gaps in midfield but allow the players in half spaces to get involved in the build-up without any effort. Even after all this, Pep wasn't too keen on playing through Madrid's press all the time. He seemed content with his team going long, even when they didn't have to. City were already in a pole position to advance into the next round, so it very well might be that Pep didn't want to take on extra risk for no reason. After getting through Madrid's initial press, City created space in between the lines, just like they did against Liverpool in their 4-0 win earlier this season. And had new tricks up their sleeves, as they kept trying to find another breakthrough. Notice how Jesus drops deep, dragging a centre-back along with him. De Bruyne spots the gap in Madrid's defence and starts making his way to exploit it. City were moving the ball like this quite a lot, as Madrid struggled to keep their opponents in check. However, Madrid were able to score a goal thanks to a nice little combination play between Benzema and Rodrigo. But that was something that wasn't able to be replicated on a regular basis, so Madrid's attack kept on struggling to make a difference. City continued to be the more threatening team. And then in the 68th minute, Varane ends up making another costly mistake as his back pass gets intercepted by Jesus, taking the game away from Real Madrid. Real Madrid did well in the first leg, while Manchester City left it late to get back into the game. In the second leg, Pep's tactics proved to be too much for Zidane to handle, as Manchester City outclassed Real Madrid to progress into the next round of Champions League. What do you think about the tactics used by Zidane and Pep? I would love to hear what you have to say, so let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed the video, share it with someone you know. It really helps. Follow me on social media, links in the description.